The transport shuttle smelled like burnt metal and recycled oxygen. Ethan Cross sat wedged between a crate of field rations and someone's unlabeled duffel bag, clutching a crumpled assignment sheet that had been printed wrong twice. He read it again. Galactic Combined Forces. Unit 7 Velhari. Reporting Station, Deck 9, Bay 4. Commander, Velith Aruna. He had reported to Bay 4. He had stood at attention. He had said, clearly and professionally, Recruit Cross, reporting for duty, ma'am. Nobody had told him that Unit 7 Velhari was an all-female Velhari combat squad. He hadn't known that until approximately 40 seconds after his arrival, when every single warrior in the room had turned to look at him in dead silence. The Velhari were tall. That was the first thing humans noticed. 7 feet on average, with angular facial ridges that ran from temple to jaw, skin in deep shades of slate and violet, and eyes that caught light like polished obsidian. They were also, by every military assessment published in the last decade, the most elite close-quarters combatants in the known galaxy. Unit 7 Velhari was not just any squad. They were the Varith class, hand-picked, battle-hardened, and deeply proud. There were 12 of them when Ethan walked in. They were sharpening blades, running diagnostics on exo-armor, and doing what soldiers the galaxy overdo in downtime, complaining. 3 of them, Joe, Mary, and Day, were arguing about proper footwork in the Velhari third form strike sequence. Then Ethan walked in. Joe saw him first. She was the shortest of the unit at a mere 6'8", with a scar across her left ridge that she'd earned in the siege of Thareth. She stopped mid-sentence. Mary, who had been demonstrating a pivot step, followed Joe's gaze and froze with one foot in the air. Day, who never froze. 12 pairs of obsidian eyes. 1 human. 1 very confused assignment sheet. Ethan Cross stood his ground. It was, objectively, the only thing he could do. Recruit Cross, said a voice from the far end of the bay. Reporting for duty. It wasn't a question. It was a repetition, someone confirming what they had just heard with their own ears, because their ears had apparently malfunctioned. Velith Aruna stepped forward. She was the commander. She wore no rank insignia, she didn't need to. The way she moved through the room told you everything. The other warriors didn't step aside, they flowed away from her path, like water recognizing a current stronger than itself. She stood 6'11", her armor a deep charcoal etched with the silver markings of a veteran campaign record. Her eyes, when they found Ethan's, did not blink. You are human, she said. Yes, Commander. You are male. Yes, Commander. This unit is Velhari. Yes, Commander. A pause. And female. I am aware of that now, Commander. Behind Velith, Mary made a sound that in any language would have translated as suppressed laughter. Day elbowed her. Joe watched Ethan with the particular intensity of a predator deciding whether something was prey or merely confusing. Velith studied the assignment sheet he held out. Her expression did not change, but her eyes moved twice across the document, which meant something had surprised her enough to require a second read. This is a valid transfer order, she said finally. Sealed by Combined Command. I was told there was a clerical error, Ethan offered. I can request reassignment. You will not, said Velith. Ethan blinked. Sit down, Recruit Cross. You will observe today's training. She handed the sheet back to him and turned away. We begin in 10 minutes. He lasted 4 minutes as an observer. The training was a contact drill, Velhari third form engagement, the same sequence Joe, Mary, and Day had been arguing about. 2 warriors would engage, one would demonstrate a fault in form, and the unit would identify and correct it. It was technical. It was fast. And it was, Ethan could not help but notice, exactly what he had spent 6 months training in at the Combined Forces Academy. Not the Velhari form, obviously. The human variant. The Kesh Cross Hybrid Curriculum, named after the joint human-Velhari research program that had spent 15 years reverse engineering alien combat theory into something human joints could actually execute. He watched Mary and Day engage. He watched Day's left pivot. He watched the fault, a half-second overextension on the back foot, leaving her center of gravity forward and her rear flank open for exactly 0.3 seconds. Nobody called it. The drill moved on. Ethan raised his hand. Valith looked at him. Recruit. The overextension on the back foot, he said carefully. Third form, second movement. It was 0.3 seconds. In a live engagement, a Keth-class opponent would have taken the flank. Silence. Day turned to look at him. Her expression was not friendly. Day had 17 confirmed kills and a reputation that preceded her into rooms. You noticed that, Valith said. It was not quite a question. We trained on the variant curriculum. The fault markers are the same. Valith looked at Day. Day said nothing, but reset her stance. They ran the movement again. This time, her pivot was clean. The overextension was gone. Joe and Mary exchanged a look. Run it again, said Valith. All of you. Recruit Cross, you will call the faults. By the end of the session, 3 things had happened. First, Ethan had called 11 form faults, 7 of which, Valith confirmed, had been flagged in their last performance review and gone unaddressed because the squad had no outside eye. Second, Day had asked him, with approximately the warmth of a winter moon, to explain the human variant of the second form entry sequence. He had explained it. She had attempted it, modified it into something that was half Velhari and entirely dangerous, and then executed it on Mary at half speed, which caused Mary to land on the floor and say something Ethan's translator declined to render. Third, Joe had sat down next to him during the water break and said, without preamble, "You are not afraid of us." Ethan considered this. Should I be? Joe's ridges shifted, the Velhari equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Every non-Velhari attached to this unit has been afraid of us. They either perform fear or they overcorrect and perform aggression. You did neither. I was focused on the drills. Yes, said Joe. That is why. That evening, in the mess, Ethan sat alone until he didn't. Mary dropped a tray across from him. Day sat beside Mary, pointedly not looking at him, which he had already learned meant she was paying close attention. Joe settled at the end of the table and began eating with the focused efficiency of someone who viewed meals as tactical refueling. The Kesh Cross curriculum, Mary said between bites. You have the full sequence? I have the academy materials. We want them. Ethan looked up. Mary was watching him with the same assessing intensity the whole unit used, but there was something else in it now, something that looked, cautiously, like respect. The kind that hadn't been given but was considering being earned. I'll need Commander Aruna's authorization, Ethan said. But yes. If she approves, I'll share everything I have. Mary nodded. That, apparently, was settled. 2 weeks later, Combined Command sent a reassignment notice. Valith submitted a counterorder within the hour. The official language was formal and clean. Recruit Cross has demonstrated cross-species tactical value. Unit 7 Velhari requests his retention for continued integration research. The unofficial version, which Ethan only heard secondhand from Joe, was somewhat shorter. He stays. Try again and we will file 17 separate complaints and 1 dual request. Combined Command did not try again. 6 months after his accidental assignment, Ethan Cross stood in formation with Unit 7 Velhari, the only human, the only male, wearing Velhari field markings alongside 12 of the most decorated warriors in the combined forces. Valith stood before them, delivering the briefing for their next deployment. She moved through the tactical details with her usual precision, clean, fast, no wasted words. When she reached the close quarters engagement plan, she paused. Recruit Cross, she said. Commander. You will take the left flank entry with Day. From his left, Day said nothing. But she shifted her stance, just slightly, to make room. Ethan Cross looked at the deployment map. He looked at the unit around him, Joe checking her blade with quiet focus, Mary cracking her knuckles, 11 warriors who had decided, slowly and without ceremony, that he belonged here. Yes, Commander, he said. Vaelitha's eyes held his for one moment, and in them, unmistakably, was the smallest ghost of a nod. It was, in Velhari culture, the highest possible compliment. Ethan didn't know that yet. But he would.